Well, being young and I kind of got on the ground. I hate to admit this now, sort of in the fetal position, sort of like, what is this? And it had this beautiful almond-shaped eye, like deer eyes. But it was an extraterrestrial biological life form. And he came up to me and touched me on my right shoulder. And whatever happened, the electromagnetic effect of it, all my hair, I had more hair then, stood on end completely. And I was totally electromagnetized. And subsequently, we went from there, and in an instant, went on board this craft. And what happened after that is sort of metaphysical, in the sense that we seem to dematerialize and then appear out in space. And I was sitting with these other extraterrestrial beings in a meditative state. And people say, well, what were they saying? I said, it wasn't about saying, it was about being. But what we did was that I was teaching them what it was like for a young man, to be in cosmic consciousness as a human. And then that's where we met. We met in that state of cosmic consciousness. And then we created what's known as the CE5 protocols, the Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind protocols. That's where they came from. And basically I began to practice this ability with them to see them in the mind's eye and then vector them to a location and have an encounter. And they told me that at some point this would be very important to know how to teach other people.
Welcome, my friends. I am Dr. Stephen Greer, and I am the founder of the Disclosure for Cash Disclosure Project. I am also the founder of the SIRIUS Free Energy Project that collected hundreds of thousands of dollars in donations. And I can't really show you what we did with that money. I'm sorry. Yes. But lately, there have been some people on, is it Twitter? Yes, the website, Twitter, who have been very critical of my latest fundraising efforts. So today I thought I would explain why I need all of that money, okay? First of all, I am the founder of the Disclosure for Cash Project. I'm not doing this for free. This has been my full-time job for decades now, okay? And it's been great for me. I've collected millions of dollars to make these films, even though a documentary film doesn't cost that much to make. I can't really explain where the money goes. I will never explain where the money goes. And who are you, Twitter warriors, to ask why I need millions of dollars, okay? I like having millions of dollars. It's probably a bunch of poor people on Twitter upset that I found a great way to praise the cash, okay? What I do is I promise people aliens, and then I sell them an app where they can talk to aliens for $10, and then they never really talk to aliens. Nobody can prove that my app works, but nobody can prove that my app doesn't work, okay? And it costs $10. Just buy the app. You bunch of cheap people, you bunch of losers, don't even have $10. Buy the app and find out if it works, okay? Somebody in a live chat calling me Dr. Stephen Moose Knuckle Greed, out of mind. Shut up. People like my Moose Knuckle, okay? Especially my wife. Now listen, okay? First of all, we're going to share some things on Twitter because this Truthseekers show host is once again in danger of me sending him a cease and desist letter because he's saying all kinds of stuff, okay? All right, we're gonna share my post from Twitter, and there's some other guy named UFO Truth Digger Anthony G. He's talking a lot of trash. We're going to address the controversy about my latest fundraiser right now, okay? I'm going to show you my post. This is transformative work, and we are educating the public about Dr. Stephen Greed's fundraising efforts. Okay, this is a fundraiser. Sorry if you don't like it. Now hold on. We're going to share this clown Stephen Cambion's Twitter, right? And this, who is this guy? Anthony Truth Digger, Anthony G, the UFO Truth Digger. And he says, anyone want to be Greer's friend? For $10,000 or more per person, event attendance, plus a dinner with other major donors and Dr. Greer at the private residence. Note, I did not add or more part. Yeah, real funny, okay? You look, I almost got the same shirt on. It says Dr. Stephen Greed, see SETI and Disclosure Project for Cash founder. Okay. Click picture above to watch Dr. Greer. Yeah, it's an urgent message, okay? There's going to be an alien invasion, but it's going to be fake, okay? And I've been talking about this for 20 or 30 years, this fake alien invasion the government's planning. And I ran out of other things to, this alien invasion is imminent, okay? It's going to happen real soon. So I'm holding emergency fundraisers so that I can make a documentary so I can educate the public about this fake alien invasion. Just like I
Truthseekers, seeking the truth. A truth so bold it's hard to hold. Truthseekers, truthseekers, yeah. Place the cash, place the cash.
Greetings and salutations, friends, and welcome back. Tonight, we're going to see a man who is a master at praising the UFO cash, a man who is constantly running fundraisers, a man who will have the boldness to charge people $10,000 to come to a spaghetti dinner at his house and talk about the aliens. Dr. Stephen Greer, sorry, I always get those two confused, has been on my radar for quite some time. And I get a sick thrill out of watching this man because this, after all, is the man who has claimed that members of his disclosure team have been murdered. Well, you can go look for police reports or, check in with the local authorities where those people died to see if you could get autopsy reports or talk to the detectives that were investigating their murders. Oh, that's right. Nobody's investigating any murders from people that were on the team of disclosure advocate extraordinaire Dr. Stephen Greer. There's no murders. The fact that he could just bold-faced lie and say people on my team have been assassinated. There's this strange sort of ridiculous spy novel aspect to Dr. Stephen Greer. And by the way, many of the top tier grifters use this. I think it's a plot device, and that plot device revolves around pretending that the information that you are sharing is so important that people have been murdered over it, as if the United States government doesn't have anything better to do than go around murdering people that are talking about fake alien stories on the internet. It's really, that's the ridiculous nature of this. But the interesting thing is that this plot device that is often used by the top tier Grift Squad members. It's been used by David Wilcock, Emery Smith, Stephen Greer. By the way, a lot of people don't know, but Emery Smith started his grifting career working as security for Stephen Greer. And if you think that's ridiculous, welcome to the club. This plot device of pretending that your information is so important and so dangerous that people are trying to kill you for sharing that information, it's really ridiculous. So, of course, I have a problem here. So I have a video to share about this, and let me get that. But before I do, let's talk a little bit about this fake plot device. Listen, nobody's trying to murder Emery Smith, David Wilcock, or Dr. Stephen Greer. I'm sorry, that is just a absolutely ridiculous assertion for anybody to. Bob Lazar also used that. Remember, people were like breaking into his car and threatening him, and it is exactly what it sounds like. It's a plot device. A plot device that's so ridiculous, so lacking in even the most basic logic. Like, why would anybody go kill people who are talking about aliens on the internet? But this is the device that these people use, again, a plot device, to make stupid people think that they have really, this information is so important that people are trying to kill me over it. So famously, Dr. Stephen Greer in his SIRIUS film talked about something called a Deadman switch. If you're not aware what that is, a quick explanation of a Deadman switch is that you create this device, you create a cache of information that would really harm and damage your enemies. And should something happen to you, I'm going to drop that Deadman switch. If somebody kills me, the Deadman switch goes off. Very dramatic, right? Very dramatic. And so Dr. Stephen Greer, in his SIRIUS film, it begins with this explanation of a Deadman switch, in which a narrator tells us that Dr. Stephen Greer is so important and he's got so many people trying to stop him from doing something with this information, sharing this important alien and disclosure information. People are trying to kill him. So he creates a Deadman switch, which would allow him to, I suppose, make sure he stays safe. Because if you kill me, I'm going to drop all the good stuff, all the best information that I have that you don't want out or available. I'm going to drop that information. And then you, my enemies, you're going to be destroyed. Wow, so melodramatic, right? It's as ridiculous as it sounds, however. So let me get to this video here, which I'm going to have to share from YouTube. Not sure what's going on with the StreamYard, but it won't let me import it just as a bumper. But that's quite okay, because this is, let me put my fair use banner up here. This is a transformative work. By the way, if you try to share anything from the garbage SIRIUS documentary film that Dr. Stephen Greer produced, you get a copyright claim. But I found a workaround, so we're good to go. And I'll also be commenting over this so that we can make it a transformative work. But before we get to this ridiculous video of Dr. Stephen Greer claiming that he has a Deadman switch and he's going to be pulling it if anything happens to him. And by the way, we have the document in the description of our video tonight is the document, Dr. Stephen Greer's Deadman switch. It's a laugh riot. We're going to get to the actual document. But, I think this really just displays how stupid and how childish and how fake some of these UFO Grift Squad members are. Like, to suggest, people, first of all, this man said that people were murdered on his team. Remember that? They said that people were murdered. Greer said that. Several members of his team were assassinated. Like, we can check this stuff, Dr. Greed. We can call the local police near where those people died and find out if there was any murder investigation. And guess what happens when we actually do that? There's no murder investigation. So I guess they not only assassinated his team members, but they covered up the fact that it was murder. So there was no local, state, or federal investigation into those people's deaths. Do you know why? Because they died of natural causes. It's ridiculous, but this is the ridiculous world that we live in, the world of UFOs. So this is from the first few minutes opening of Dr. Greer's SIRIUS documentary. But before we get to that, I've been able to find through the wonders of the Wayback Machine. I've been able to find Dr. Greer's documentary about this project, and wouldn't you know, this is interesting. SIRIUS Documentary Fund pledged of $250,000. So he asked for $250,000 to make the film SIRIUS, and this is a snapshot from April of 2012. They were up to $350,000. Now, he's since wiped this website from the internet, and there was only so many screen captures, but I am aware that Dr. Greer raised $500,000, I believe, to the best of my knowledge and recollection, over $500,000 in this crowdfund to make this film. So one has to ask themselves, what happened to the additional $250,000 over the intended goal to make the film? And by the way, just in case you're curious, a documentary film of the quality that he made does not cost $250,000 to create, in my opinion. And I've shown that film to several other documentary film people who agree that that film didn't cost that much. But, do we get to see a spreadsheet of how he spent this $500,000? Of course not. Of course not. And remember, this says 350. I seem to recall that he raised $500,000 because at the time I was blown away. Like, people gave this clown $500,000 to make a movie. Great. There's hope for us all. But let's get back to the Deadman Switch video where Dr. Stephen Greer claims that he's so important that people are trying to kill him. So he needs a Deadman switch so that when they kill him, he can get back at all his enemies with all of the dangerous cache of information, a cache of damaging evidence that he's going to put in these files. And if anything happens to him, the Deadman switch will get pressed, and that damaging evidence will be released into the world. But wait till we get to the document and you see what's in it. But here's the explanation here.
Most people don't know what a dead man's trigger is. And even fewer need one.
Oh, Dr. Greer needs one.
Dead man's trigger is a safety valve.
There's Emery Smith.
For reasons of security, a person prepares a recourse of such severe action that if harmed,
severe action,
they will release a cache of damaging evidence against those enemies.
Cache of damaging evidence. Sounds dramatic, doesn't it? Dead man.
In this situation, Dr. Stephen Greer is one of those rare men.
He needs a dead man switch. Listen to all those stupid people clapping.
Why would he need one? He's not the first person to push the disclosure of a corrupt military-industrial agenda.
Oh, very dramatic, friends. Very dramatic. So there's Dr. Stephen Greer's from his film. And interestingly, I remember at the time this film came out, people were like, wow, I wonder what's in the dead man switch. Maybe it's the real disclosure. Like, maybe it's like smoking gun evidence or proof of aliens. That's what it's got to be. And interestingly, the document that we're going to be sharing with you tonight was shared with some of Dr. Stephen Greer's closest supporters and big money donors. And of course, inevitably, I believe that it leaked. Now, I'm not sure if this was ever posted publicly, but Dr. Greer has never denied that this is indeed the document that's supposed to be his Deadman switch. So, but I want to put a disclaimer that somehow he won't comment about this specific document that we're going to be sharing, which, by the way, as we always try to do, it's in the description of the video. You can download it and read this shit for yourself. It's awesome. And we're going to be getting into all of it. But before we do, I thought that I would take a moment just to talk about a bit about Dr. Stephen Greer's constant need for funds. We just covered how he hasn't gotten a check from his documentary film distributor for a few months, and he's already holding a fundraiser and suing them, or saying that he's going to sue them. So it's important to note, especially for all you stupid people, this man doesn't give a shit about disclosure. He cares about the money. It's all about the money. And it's very evident with a man running $10,000 a ticket, special events, especially those CE5 events to see the aliens. And oh boy, by the way, before we get into his Deadman's document, I have something else that's funny to share with you. There have been various rumors about what goes on at Dr. Stephen Greer's CE5 events, which cost anywhere from a few $1,000s to 10 or 20, I'm told, by various advertisements that Greer has put out for some of these events. Very expensive. And we have detailed the disappointment, I suppose, that some people feel after shelling out big bucks to attend these events. But I did find a really wonderful review. And again, just a disclaimer, I don't know about the veracity of this review, but the person who wrote the review seems to know a great deal about Dr. Stephen Greer, his history, his event, what goes on there. So I'm going to take it as a real review, but take from that what you will. So this is a review, a customer review of somebody who attended a CSETI workshop, and says, that's Knowledge Seeker, not to be confused with me, Truthseeker. At his CSETI workshop, I saw the real hidden truth. This reviewer says, I followed Dr. Greer's activities with enthusiasm since 2001, when he established the Disclosure Project. I read his books, watched his interviews, and listened to his meditation CDs. I liked everything the man seemed to be about and shared his views on the need to inform the public about the presence of extraterrestrial visitors on Earth, the importance of establishing peaceful contact with these visitors, and developing free or low-cost over-unity energy technologies that would clean the planet, eliminate conflict between nations, and bring about a dignified quality of life and abundance to people all over the world. I still share those goals. So it was with great excitement that I signed up for the CSETI presentation and a one-day workshop with Dr. Greer that took place on November 13th and 14th in Costa Mesa, California. I did verify that an event did take place there. Surprisingly, he says, my preconceived opinion about Dr. Greer's character began to disintegrate as I listened to his presentation. It was disheartening to discover he is excessively fascinated with himself, prone to indulge in name dropping and in bragging about his fantastic high-end and or in-the-know contacts and connections, not to mention the multitude of outlandish remarks he makes with a straight face, such as his impact on the rogue, majestic secret government. So much so that, according to him, he rejected a $2 billion payout to shut up and abandon the ET disclosure issue. Yeah, that's another one of his big porkies, that the government offered him $2 billion to shut up about the aliens. And a man who's so focused on money said no to $2 billion. Yes, that's what he claims. Needless to say, that night I left the auditorium less enthusiastic about what Dr. Greer is all about, but it was not until the workshop and the outing next day that my opinion about him really changed, unfortunately for the worst. During the workshop, Dr. Greer devoted some time to self-admiration while attempting to appear humble by saying, I'm just a country doctor from North Carolina. By then, I was becoming quite uncomfortable about him as the workshop progressed, and my discomfort turned into dismay as I watched how rudely he treated some attendees who asked valid questions or made harmless remarks, but whose timing or subject he deemed inappropriate. Yeah, isn't it? This guy's supposed to be spiritually enlightened, and he's like snapping at people that paid 10 grand to see him. You got to love it. Or 2 grand or whatever they paid. This reviewer goes on to say, I was truly shocked and could not believe my eyes as I watched him lash out at them with such scornful contempt. It was so bad that I wondered if this man was consciously trying to chase these people away. Dr. Greer claims to have experienced meditative samadhi, or oneness with all. If so, one would think he would have achieved a certain degree of enlightenment and sense of kinship toward just fellow men. Yeah, Mr. Spiritually Enlightened. Why then was he so harsh and unkind? Did he forget these people paid a significant amount of money, not only to listen, but also to ask questions as well? The most disheartening part of the experiences was witnessing the CSETI's field contact protocol. At the site, a number of devices such as a radio transmitter, magnetometer, radar detectors, infrared scope were arranged. Even though I don't doubt Dr. Greer may have had several ET experiences in the past, what I observed in the field that night is inconsistent with his hyperbolic claims suggesting he can vector ETs and make them appear. Remember, Dr. Greer is selling an app, and he claims that he can summon alien spaceships and aliens. Great. His actions and the facts demonstrated that at the very least, this is a bold exaggeration. Not surprisingly, to cover up for his assertion, Dr. Greer made sure to bring out a series of possibilities for a no-show prior to the field excursion. According to him, sometimes the ETs might not appear because there is someone in the group without good intent and a clean heart, or ETs feel threatened by the U.S. military. Even though they won't fully materialize, they will manifest in 1,000 other ways. So Greer does a setup, and he gives himself an out for when nothing happens. Conveniently, there were plenty of people at hand, mostly staff, who would come forward to state while meditating they saw this or heard that. Most amusing, though, were Dr. Greer's remarks at the beeps and sounds made by his electronic equipment. According to him, an ET named Walter communicates via one of these electronic devices. He's got an alien named Walter, people. Dr. Stephen Greer's got an alien named Walter. Dr. Greer is able to recognize which beeps he makes. Additionally, the large quantity of wow and oh my God remarks coming out of Dr. Greer's mouth over unseen or imaginary non-events was sadly hilarious. Oftentimes, he would point to his mega laser beam at some spot in the sky and claim he was seeing a partly materialized ET craft. Of course, anyone else saw nothing. And even though, according to him, many significant events were taking place that night because we were such a great group, to make matters worse, Dr. Greer supplemented the lack of any occurrence with information he received via remote viewing. Yeah, you can't see the aliens, but I'm remote viewing them right now. Give me another 10 grand. Give me another 10 grand. I'll remote view some more aliens for you. This is so stupid. How would you feel if you gave this idiot thousands of dollars to see the aliens and this is the shit you got? Anyway, this reviewer goes on to say, I found this charade insulting to my intelligence, intuitiveness, and psychic sensibilities. I know ETs were not present that night. I guess this reviewer's a wackadoo too. And I would have respected Dr. Greer if he had been forthright and acknowledged the fact that there was no activity. I would understand. It happens. Because I experienced firsthand Dr. Greer's tendency to fabricate, exaggerate, and embellish non-events at a CSETI field trip. It then follows that the accuracy and validity of everything he claims in his books is in question, since it is evident that, at the very least, he stretches the truth to the point where it becomes short of being an outright lie. In the past, wherever I would read negative reviews about Dr. Greer, especially ones describing him as a self-centered narcissist, I would reject them and conclude they were made by people who couldn't handle the truth. But based on what I saw and experienced firsthand, says the reviewer, It appears that Dr. Greer is in love with himself, and because he sees himself above others, he dislikes most people. However, he desperately craves attention, so he created this ET disclosure platform to attract as large an audience as possible in order to obtain the recognition and adulation he sorely needs. In essence, regardless of the message, this messenger is so flawed, one must question the purity and the true nature of his motivations. His books, conferences, and CSETI outings may be more about the money they bring than the message itself. Furthermore, unless you enjoy people being mistreated by Dr. Greer and don't mind embarking on a pathetic farce, it's a farce paying him all this money, I recommend you put your money elsewhere instead of spending it on any of his CSETI incursions. And then he talks about how Edgar Mitchell refutes claims made by Greer, and the CIA director refuted Greer claiming to have briefed him. Interesting. So that's what you get when you pay for these huge money events. And listen, here's the thing. There's got to be some activity. All these people are paying all this money to see the aliens. Of course he's going to play fast. Oh, I see them aliens. They're partially materialized. Oh, I'm remote viewing them aliens. Come on. This is so ridiculous. But I've heard from multiple people who were very, very unhappy with the experience they had. Now, we're going to get into the Deadman switch. And I don't know how much of this we can cover because this is 33 pages. And by the way, in the description of the video is a copy of this Deadman switch document. You too can get all that damaging cachet of information about Dr. Stephen Greer's enemies. And by the way, I want to thank Spooky for the thumbnail and for sending this to me again. Do you know, this is the third time's the charm, I guess. 2 other times somebody sent me this Deadman switch document, and I would read it or start reading it or read parts of it and go, I got to do a show about this, because remember, he claims that this is a document that is going to be so damaging to his opponents, MJ-12 and the secret government cabal, that they would never kill him, because if they did, they'd be screwed when he released this document. But there are some interesting parts to it. After all, we have reported that Dr. Stephen Greer has collected something like $500,000 to create a free energy device. And he has never, to my knowledge, explained where the money went. But in this document, we get an explanation where a few $100,000 went. According to him, he got scammed by a scammer. But this opens a whole list of problems for him. Where's the police reports? Somebody scammed you out of $300,000? You file criminal charges against them, right? Go try to look for those police reports. Let me know what you find. And there's various accusations made against all kinds of people about criminal activity in this thing. Again, I want to see police reports of Greer reporting all of this stuff to authorities. If somebody is literally threatening the lives of your family and your children, you're going to go to the police. You're going to make a police report. And if he can't show police reports, then all this is a bunch of stories that are bullshit, in my opinion. I want to see police reports about all this criminal activity alleged in this document. All right, so, but before we begin, let's take a moment to welcome in and recognize the live chat. Ganja says, I come from another planet. My name is Walter. Yeah, it makes total sense that an alien would be called Walter, doesn't it? It doesn't make any sense. All right, we're going to get into the document. And again, it's in the description of the video. It's a free download. One of the things that our kind and generous benefactors provide for us here is a huge Google Drive so that I can share all the show materials, and we do our best to try to do that. In the description of the video, you will find a link to this document, which we will be sharing. If I can find it. Oh, there we go. Now, this is a 33-page document. I don't know how much of this I want to go to. Let me check on time. We're already at 37 minutes in. We'll see. if people really want me to go through this whole thing, maybe we'll do this in 2 parts. But if you're satisfied about the hilarity of what is in this document, remember, it's supposed to be a Deadman switch to get back all of his enemies should they kill him. I don't know what to say. Should they kill him, we've got this Deadman switch. Let me take a moment, though, to welcome in the live chat. Welcome if you're chatting in the Twitch chat. Welcome if you're chatting in the Rumble chat. Welcome if you're chatting in the YouTube chat, on the Facebook live feeds, Twitter live feeds, or the pill.net feed. We welcome one and all chatters here. So let's get into the document. And again, I don't know. We'll see how much of this we get through in, say, the next 30 minutes to decide if we're going to go through this whole thing. Let me magnify that on my end. For those unaware, I'm visually impaired. Okay. So this is Stephen Greer's testimony from April 27th, 2010. This is Dr. Stephen Greer, and if you're hearing this, it's because I have either been killed or I am missing. I've been killed! Or I have been illegally imprisoned on some trumped-up charges that have been confabulated by people who want to stop our work. This is a confidential file that has been released to the public because a worst-case scenario has ensued, and that's why we've created this as a countermeasure to the threats that we have had in the last year or so. As you know, in 2008, we formed the OrionProject.org. By the way, the Orion Project is Dr. Stephen Greer's free energy grift. And I have reported that through various sources, we've been able to determine that he's collected over $500,000 for that. This Saturday night, we have a special event here. Is free energy possible? And it is a 4-part deep dive into free energy, what I would term as free energy scams and free energy scammers, 4 of them. And Dr. Greer's Orion Project is included in that special event this Saturday night, 9 p.m. Please join me in the live chat for that. I don't want to waste time giving so many details of this Orion Project. It's enough to say that Greer claimed that he was going to create a free energy device and open source it and give it to the world, and he collected all this money. What happens next is a comedy, if you ask me, but let's leave that for this Saturday night, the full breakdown of that. But he does talk about this free energy project. And by the way, this Saturday night special event includes a section on the John Searle motor and anti-gravity engine, the Joseph Newman free energy device, the John Hutchinson crystal power cells, and Dr. Stephen Greer's claims of free energy. Guess how many of those people, after collecting a lot of money for research, created a free energy device? None of them. You know why? Because free energy is not real. I did, for a time, think that it may be possible. And part of me would love to think that it is possible. But what you get with free energy is a lot of people collecting a lot of money and not delivering anything that works. A lot of bullshit, nothing that works. Okay. And so he formed the Orion Project that had a prime focus on bringing out these new energy systems. Since that time, I've gotten a new steady stream of increasing levels of death threats and also legal threats that I want to summarize here. And I want to name names. Eventually, we will go all the way back to 1991 or 92, but I'm going to start with the more recent era. When we began the Orion Project, we formed it as a nonprofit to raise funds and to identify and bring out advanced physics that would replace oil, gas, and coal, and would bring out a lot of classified technologies that are at the heart of why UFOs are secret. They are being kept secret because there is a very powerful group of people, the transnational petro-Nazis, as I call them, that want to see all this information from the public and technologies from the public. They want to keep it from the world under their control. And they want to be able to keep it in a state of keep us in a state of enslavement on a macroeconomic level. He goes on to say, we know and have known for many years that this is one of the central reasons for the secrecy, along with certain other issues, military issues. We began to make a lot of progress in identifying people and getting funding to bring these devices out. And as we did so, a number of people surfaced to try to entrap our project and take us down. One of the worst things that happened was in late 2008 when we were introduced to a military intelligence officer named Todd Hathaway to a guy named Pete Sumaruk. And Pete Sumaruk, it turned out, who claimed to be a Navy SEAL, was actually a fraud. They set up an elaborate trick in California in the San Francisco Bay Area where they were able to trick a whole group of engineers into thinking that this Pete Sumaruk had an energy breakthrough, but he did not. Yeah, so the free energy world is filled with scammers. It's just like the UFO world. It turned out, however, that it was a very well done trick, and he succeeded in extorting and defrauding the Orion project out of $300,000 in November 2008. So Dr. Greer is claiming that a great deal of the money that he collected, I was told by a source he collected over $500,000, went to this person who scammed them. He said that this person extorted his nonprofit and defrauded his nonprofit. So there would be police reports of this, right? There would definitely be police reports, right? Go try to find them. Where, Dr. Stephen Greer, where's the police reports of you getting defrauded out of $300,000? And you would have to have proof that you gave this man the $300,000, right? I mean, even if you get, if you don't give him a check, you get a canceled check if you give him a check. If you get a cashier's check and give it to him, if you wire transfer the funds, there'd be proof that he gave this $300,000 to this person. And if you were extorted or defrauded out of $300,000, I'm pretty sure you would, press charges. So where's the police reports about this? Good question. Pete Sumaruk, it turned out, was someone who had worked with a lot of shadowy former military and intelligence people and special forces people. But he himself, as it turns out, was not the Navy SEAL he claimed to be. He was working very closely with Todd Hathaway, who has been involved with New Energy for many years. Todd Hathaway is a Mormon. Then there's this whole Mormon conspiracy, who appears to be an agent from the Mormon corporate empire. I wasn't aware there's a Mormon corporate empire, but there you have it. He alleged that he was doing a PhD in nuclear engineering at the University of Maryland, and yet he was never in the area. He went all over the world looking into these free energy devices and seemed to have a real assignment at the Pentagon. However, over the years, he had befriended us. I got to know him and his wife, Nora Maccabee, and their young child that had been in their home many times. And he had been in my home, and he basically gotten into our confidence very heavily. His behavior was always a bit odd. He always behaved like someone who was not quite normal. And in retrospect now, I believe he was someone who went through some kind of Manchurian candidate, MK Ultra type mind conditioning, probably through the Mormon interface with the military industrial complex. What the hell is he talking about? Which we know to be part of the secret government that's dragging the world down. So the secret Mormons are dragging the world down? Okay. Todd Hathaway called us about Pete Sumaruk and actually was at the site the time we went, or was trying to play a very helpful role in being sure the Orion project got the technology so we could bring it out to the world. At the very first visit, there was a man present, Jim Dunn, and Jim Dunn is a national security agent operative who looks into these issues. And he told Jan and me on the ride from Sumaruk's garage after we'd seen the testing that he had done a lot of work on for the major oil companies and the intelligence community, and began to belabor his bona fides in the covert world as well as the oil and gas sector world, and that we should work with him on this technology. Of course, we were very suspicious of this, and other people who were, in a sense, bidding to get Pete Sumaruk's technology at the same time. This, it turned out, was a psychological setup. Oh, Dr. Greer was the victim of a psyop, apparently. because we were concerned that the intelligence community was going to get their hands on this technology and hide it from the planet. At the same time, there were at least a half a dozen engineers there for the demonstration who were convinced that it was very important technology. Based on this, we provided a $300,000 grant to Sumeruk. And here's the thing, the definition of a grant is it's not a loan. You don't have to give the money back. So Dr. Stephen Greer sees a device. He's collected $500,000 or more dollars. He sees a device that this person has that they claim works, and he gives the guy in a grant. That's a gift. A grant is a gift. He gives him $300,000. So is that guy really defrauding him if Greer gave him the money? I don't know. I guess it gets complicated. Almost immediately after Sumeruk got the funds, it became clear to us from people like Sterling Allen, who is also a Mormon, who was involved with this, that there and was there at the test, that lo and behold, he and Jim Dunn were convinced that once our funds had been transferred to Pete Sumeruk, that in fact Pete Sumeruk's device was a hoax. In fact, I did figure out it was a hoax, but by then Sumeruk had already made off with our funds. So all you stupid UFO people who gave Dr. Greer money for this free energy scam, Dr. Greer apparently got scammed himself. And I'm sure he has accounting to prove all this, right? Like he has spreadsheets for every dollar that he took in. By the way, Dr. Greer, according to the IRS, you have to file 990s for every year you run a nonprofit. Why can't I find yours? Is it because they're too old or what? I'll have to follow up with the IRS about that. But an interesting that he's claiming that I've been told he collected more than $500,000 for this effort. He's claiming 300,000 went to a scammer. Where's the other 200,000? Because Dr. Stephen Greer has never produced a free energy device. And then, just so everybody's aware, he collected another $500,000 just to make a film about free energy. Why couldn't he use the money from the first $500,000 he collected to make a film about free energy? Well, why only collect $500,000 from the public if you can collect a full million? Dr. Greer has collected a full $1 million for free energy. $500,000 to make a device, didn't make anything, and then $500,000 to make a film. Made a film that didn't cost $500,000 to make. If you've seen it, you might agree with me. So $1 million generated from free energy. Great. He goes on to talk about the Mormon connection. The Mormon connection is significant because we know that the Mormon corporate empire is really the crown jewel of the covert contracting, all these new energy and UFO issues. And its secret bases are out in Dugway near Provo, Utah. And there's a long history of infiltration by the Mormon structure into intelligence and military community. What's it against the Mormons, right? There is a high number of Mormons that happen to be federal agents and FBI members and NSA members. And that might have to do with Mormonism's stance on drugs and alcohol. If you want a good, clean federal agent, you get a Mormon. And that may be the cause of this conspiracy. There is a lot of Mormons in the federal government because they're good boys, right? They don't do drugs, alcohol, to my knowledge. He goes on to say, so as time went on, eventually this relationship with Sumeruk broke down because he refused to actually build anything. And it was quite clear that he was just going to continue the hoax. He also refused, of course, to return any funds. At this point, we started getting a series of threats. March 2009 from a Doug Kilpack, also a Mormon who at the time was living in Phoenix. But currently his last address was a small town in Utah. So the Mormons are threatening to kill him. I don't know about you, but you ever meet a Mormon? They tend to be very peaceful, peace-loving people. I don't see them going around threatening to murder people, but okay. We began to get a number of death threats from this person who we've confirmed is a manic depressive bipolar. And it states that these will be scanned into the file so you can read them. But it basically says, hi, Dr. Greer. You are transparent to me. What is your family worth to you? Just pay me what you owe me. He didn't say what he owed this guy money for. Plus interest, and I'll call off the hunt. Perpetual motion is mine 100%, or you will disappear along with your business and everything connected to you. Wow, sounds threatening. And then they list the children's full names and my wife's name, and he had in our address, and he said, this is your last chance to pay what you stole from me, plus interest. And then he says, hi, evil twins. The hunted now becomes the hunter. Your time is up. That was on March 7th, 2009. On March 8th, he wrote to us, hi, evil twins. Anything you do is against the law, and you shall go to prison. I, on the other hand, have a license to kill, like James Bond, 007. Who really would send him a message like that? But okay. The NSA will be forced to release my records. Your time is up. Doug killed Pack. And then it goes on. There are many of these. Then it says, explain your terrorism, extortion, and genocide of mankind. I, on the other hand, get my satisfaction in the end when I complete the hunt. Your final choice. Pay me everything you owe me, plus interest, and bring me my girls, Anastasia and Stacy. I mean, this is absolutely insane. You are both stupid monkey morons. It goes on and on. Basically, these all started at exactly the time that Sumeruk and Todd Hathaway event was coming to a head. So according to Greer, somebody scams him out of $300. Then he starts to get death threats after he got scammed out of the $300,000. Greer's Deadman switch goes on to say, a couple of months later in the summer of 2009, we then started getting some emails from someone at anonymouspeach.com website. And Todd Hathaway always referred to himself, he and his folks were doing as white hats. It was from a guy called White Hats. At anonymouspeech.com, and basically it's a threat saying critical protections are rescinded by the network when actions taken against Sumeruk is confirmed, as the window of opportunity to collaborate with Sumeruk has passed. This reads like a terrible spy novel, like somebody that just never wrote a spy novel wrote like the shittiest spy novel you've ever heard in your life. That's what this reads like. You have chosen your friends poorly, listening intently into those who cherish your reputations versus direct contact with Sumeruk. And friends, family, colleagues, and technology for extended periods of time, relying primarily on remote viewing Sumeruk, and guidance from self-interested third parties requires boots-on-the-ground approach, and you choose to identify Sumeruk as a fraud. Basically, Greer goes on to say, what this was saying is that they had stood down on the order to hold their fire on me. Uh-oh, Greer's losing the protection of the deep state. Now they're going to murder him. This is getting good, folks. No, it's getting worse. So in the summer of 2009, they concocted some ridiculous nude pictures without showing the face. Oh, remember this? Famously, somebody put out pictures of a Grindr profile, which I believe Grindr is for gay men. And they put those out, and they were purportedly pictures of Greer's Grindr profile where he was trying to bang dudes. Yeah, those are rumors, though, that came out with these images that it was Greer's Grindr. I don't know. Sorry, not a gay man. I apologize to my gay friends. I think it was a Grindr.com website, and there were pictures of what appeared to be Greer, but not his face. I think there was naked pictures, which is really gross, because who wants to see Dr. Stephen Greer's junk? Not me. Not me. Who in the live chat would like to see Dr. Stephen Greer's junk? Definitely not me. So they concocted some ridiculous nude photos without showing the face, averring that they wrote mine and started putting them on websites of this Laura Charlotte woman who is an NSA operative, and also trying to basically extort and blackmail us with such things. Then we began to have more serious problems. For example, we were in Mount Shasta in the summer of 2009. at our site up at Sand Flats one evening, we had a person stalking us that came into the site. There were two people, a man and a woman. The woman remained near the car outside of our circle and sat on a rock. And then there was another man who was apparently part of her team and was up in the woods. I'd left the circle briefly because I had to relieve myself. Yeah, Stephen Greer had to leave the circle of meditation because he had to take a shit. Sometimes when you're summoning aliens, you just need to take a shit. Maybe you have to take a piss. I don't know. You're out in the woods, right? Well, out in the desert, I guess. You got to find a cactus. He had to relieve himself. And I walked outside the circle perhaps 20 yards, and I looked up, and I was painted by red laser light off a rifle scope that was pointing at me by somebody up in the woods. Uh-oh. So they targeted Dr. Greer. This caused great alarm to everyone there, and we eventually left that site. The woman behaved very oddly. She sat on this rock and wouldn't move when we shone lights and lasers at her. Yeah, and how does he know it was from a laser scope if the person was up in the woods? Could have been just somebody with a laser pointer, right? But go right to somebody's trying to assassinate me because that sounds better, right? The woman behaved oddly. She sat on this rock and wouldn't move when we showed lights and lasers at her and was behaving almost like an automaton, claiming that she was there to watch the stars, which made no sense whatsoever. Yeah, because nobody ever goes out into the desert in the middle of the night to watch the stars. It's a very common occurrence if you're ever out in the desert. People wander, and people do sky watches out there. It's great sky watching. But, oh, could be that. They got to be here to murder me, right? And remember, what are we up to here? We're up to page 7. This is supposed to be the most damaging information about the deep state that he has, that he would release after they murdered him. This is supposed to be such damaging information that'll bring the whole deep state down. And I guess the oil and petro gas industries and the Majestic 12. And what is it? It's stupid stories that he's telling about people threatening him and threatening to kill him. We left the site and we went on to call our secluded, and we went to what we call our secluded site at Mount Shasta, where we had some other people who, with lights off, had driven into the site. This happened in other years. They were there observing our actions, what we were doing, and while we were making contact. When we went home that night, we were driving up this mountain that was very windy. We were renting a log house outside of Mount Shasta, and a black Dodge, what looked like the M300 type vehicle with blacked out windows, ooh, must be the Men in Black, came speeding up the wrong side of the road in a blind curve and accelerated straight into us and tried to run us off the road at about 1:30 in the morning. I guess it was. Luckily, I was driving and I was able to make an evasive maneuver, and we did not wreck. We went quickly back to our house and secured the house and locked it up. That was in late August 2009, about 9 months ago from today's date. Now, the other thing that happened that I should mention around this time period is that we were getting these threatening emails that we know came from Todd Hathaway and his cell of NSA and energy intelligence spooks and operatives. We have a groundskeeper here in our house, our farm in Virginia, and she was cutting the front part of the lawn on a riding tractor. That's nice. So Greer's got a woman that works for him that cuts his grass. Must be nice having those millions of UFO dollars. You could pay a woman to do your man chores for you. Anyway, and she looked down at the base of the driveway. It was almost identical vehicle to what ran us off the road at Mount Shasta. It was white, unmarked sedan with totally blackened out windows. That's nothing like the other one, but, you know, plot holes here, Dr. Greer. Come on. A very long telephoto lens came out that proceeded to photograph the entire property and all the windows in the house. And then she said it was very, very strange. When she noticed them and stopped to look, they sped off rather suspiciously. So all this kind of harassment, threatening emails, stalking, bizarre people trying to run us off the road, and what have you started after we formed the Orion Project and got pulled into this fraud scheme to defraud that involved Jim Dunn of the National Security Agency, Todd Hathaway of the Pentagon, and other people. Clearly, it was a scheme to defraud and a setup, and it cost us $300,000. not to mention enormous stress. And again, if you're a subject of a harassment campaign, aren't you going to call the police? Aren't you going to make reports? Isn't there going to be reports of threats, harassment? Are you going to give copies of the threatening emails to the police or the FBI? Where's the proof of this? Or is this all just elaborate stories given to Greer's stupid inner circle, right? Because this is not like a document, to my knowledge, that he just made public. This was what you got when you became a big donor. You got the inside scoop of what was really going on, right? No, you get a bad 33-page spy novel. I should also point out during this time, the new president had gotten elected. And around this time, this same time period of 2009, between February and April, is also when we put together a very extensive briefing on the whole subject, not just the energy subject, but the classified projects related to UFOs and extraterrestrial intelligence. And this document was given to people like House Intelligence Committee Chairman Sylvester Reyes. It was also given directly to Bob Gates, Secretary of Defense. So he writes a document and gives it to people in the government. And then he says that he briefed them. Oh, I briefed the Secretary of Defense. Well, anybody can mail any member of the government anything that they wrote. It doesn't mean that you briefed them. And Greer famously claimed that he briefed every sitting U.S. president. Go check in with them. Go check in. There's no briefings. He claimed he briefed every sitting U.S. president since Ronald Reagan. No mention of Dr. Stephen Greer in any of the presidential libraries, as would have to have happened if he actually briefed sitting presidents. But, don't let things like reality and facts and evidence get in the way of a good story full of bullshit, right? Greer is a narcissist. He does like to make himself sound important, right? He's got all these high-level contacts. He's briefing every president since Ronald Reagan, yet there's no mention of him in any presidential historical documents. And to be clear, every minute of every day of every president is logged, and that information makes their way into the presidential library of each president. I consider myself a pretty good researcher. We contacted the Reagan Library, the Clinton Library, the Obama Library, the George Bush Library, the George W. Bush Library, the Ronald Reagan Library. There's no mention of Greer in any presidential library, which means he never had any meetings with any of those presidents. So when he says he briefed every U.S. president, does that mean, and I think he has backpedaled on this, in several of his films, he claimed that he briefed every sitting U.S. president since Reagan. But there's another clip I found of him saying, well, I prepared briefings and sent them to the presidents, which means he just wrote some shit down and sent it to the White House. And now he's going to claim that he briefed presidents. Okay. It was also given to Janet Napolitano, Homeland Security head, and her team, as well as other senior people, including Dal LaMagna, who is friends with John Podesta, who was also very involved in the formation of the Huffington Post. So it's in this backdrop of moving this intelligence into senior circles that this harassment occurred. You'll be able to see the documents of what was in the briefing for the president and my cover letter. Most of it's been released. Importantly, one of the things that on the cover letter is a specific mention of a Jeffrey Alan Cameron, a top secret scientist who has been assigned at various times to Redstone Arsenal and other facilities. And this gets to the point where recently happened another takedown event. Back in 2000 or 2005, Rick Folk, who is a senior scientist at the Naval Research Labs, and done some work with Jeffrey Alan Cameron on high voltage systems that resulted in an electrogravitic effect. Okay, so he's claiming somebody invented anti-gravity. It turns out that Jeffrey Alan Cameron had for many years worked in a very highly classified projects as a physicist and applied engineer. I got to skip some of this. This is just getting stupider and stupider. Remember, this is supposed to be the Deadman switch, where all the important information that he has is to be released in the event of his death. What are these? This is stupid stories. I went down to Huntsville, Alabama, near a little place called Decatur. there was what had been an old daycare center, and the daycare center had been converted into a secret lab that was being operated by Ted. So now we got secret labs under the support of a contract from Colonel John Fulda and the Redstone Arsenal. I wonder what would happen if somebody contacted every one of these people and fact checked this shit. I bet you this would fall apart quicker than a house of cards, right? This is just getting stupider and stupider the longer that we go. All right. Sorry, we got to focus. We're going to get through this. So this person is developing free energy and anti-gravity technology. Jeff Cameron had actually gotten some of the classified work he was doing as a result of working system. Colonel Fulda told me that he had classification for that work and that he had classified that work to protect it. They had things that were flying and floating, and he saw enormous applications for this. So yeah, according to Dr. Greer, he's in the know. They invented free energy, but then classified it and hid it from everybody. It turns out that Rick Folk at the Naval Research Labs independently reproduced the high voltage lifter and anti-gravity effect that had been developed by Jeff Cameron under this Redstone Arsenal contract from the Army. By the way, you'd be able to FOIA Redstone Arsenal contract from the United States government if it exists. I bet you it does not exist, because this whole thing reads like a work of bad fiction written by a maniac. All right. So what we had decided to do, if we could, was eventually be able to work with Jeff Cameron to bring out energy devices that were not involving anti-gravity propulsion, since we've been ordered not to go forward with these sorts of systems. So the deep state, the government, the cabal, the men in black ordered them not to go forward with free energy systems that were also anti-gravitic. Sure. But this would result in a free energy device, which we know has existed for at least 100 years from the time of Tesla forward. And these discussions, therefore, began more than 5 years ago. After the Orion project was formed in 2008, we had hoped to be able to have Jeff Cameron work with us on this. And so we reestablished contact. I had not been in touch with him for maybe 3 years at this point. So in the fall of 2008, we reestablished contact and actually had a meeting with him up at our home in Virginia, outside of Charlottesville, Virginia. How many houses does Greer have? A few, apparently. I believe that would have been November 2008. Jeff Cameron came and we discussed a number of technologies that we could develop. He came up with a number of ideas, including a sort of advanced version of Tesla's Earth energy generator, where he was pulling energy out of Earth's electromagnetic field and things of this sort. Yeah, there's no proof that anybody can pull any energy out of Earth's magnetic field. That's a free energy lie, but okay. And a number of other ideas that did not involve anti-gravity propulsion, because we knew that was something we could not work on. Who's stopping you from working on anything? Come on. This is so stupid. Again, the plot device is what he's working on is so important, so incredible that people are trying to stop him from sharing this information. It's a bad, bad spy novel. So we're up to page 9. Sorry, this is page, it says 10 at the top and 9 here. This is confusing. 11 here, 10 here. I think we're on page, it's actually page 9. So far, talk about a huge disappointment. We're more than a quarter of the way in. Did anybody hear any breathtaking information that, the cabal would be afraid of? It's like a bad spy novel about a free energy device that never was, and people that Greer is somehow interacting with here. No proof of any of this. It's just stories, but that's kind of what you can come to expect from Greer. 1 second here. All right, so here's where we get into more money, right? Now, everybody knew that we were stepping on the $600 trillion toes of the derivatives market and the commodities market, the Goldman Sachs of the world. Yeah, there's always this theme that he's going against the deep state, the cabal, the rich, powerful ruling class. He paints himself as some sort of modern hero, you know, like a Robin Hood. He's gonna take this technology from the rich and give it to the poor people. Even with that, but he claimed that his shepherds had cleared him to do it. So we agreed at the end of that meeting to proceed, and we were going to provide him, through the Orion Project, a substantial grant. I think it was around $250,000. So Greer is basically meeting these people who claim that they're developing free energy. He's collecting hundreds of thousands of dollars from the UFO community, largely, to develop these free energy devices, and then he's giving out hundreds of thousands of dollars to people. Now, I have to say that during this first meeting, which were a couple of days of meetings here at our house, Dr. Ted Loader, Bill Constantino, and myself, and Dr. Bravo, and Jeffrey Allen Cameron, he told us a number of extraordinary stories of the kind of research he had done, including the fact that he had done work where he had created energy fields where, say, metal objects would go into this field and would disappear and then would reappear a couple of days later, all mangled. Sounds like the Hutchinson effect. He also told stories of objects on his farm, boulders that would move, and actually Rick Folk had confirmed this, that there had been alterations in space and time where objects would just move. Huge boulders and rocks would just jump around as if they were going forward and backward in geological time. He also spoke of the fact that there was a race of extraterrestrial life forms. Now we get into the aliens that were maybe around 4.5 to 5 feet tall, blonde, and had dark navy blue suits, and he actually drew the insignia on the suits. These ETs would appear in his laboratory, his house. This idiot Greer is giving hundreds of thousands of dollars to a wackadoo who claims aliens are showing up at his lab, at his house. Okay, sounds legitimate, right? The lower level of his house was actually a classified area. And his wife, Susan, who also has security clearance for this area of the house. She is the president of Zephron Technologies and is, in fact, a security officer for Zephron Technologies. I'm going to take a moment. We're going to look that up. ZEPH, Zephron Technologies. Let's see if that even exists. No. ZEPHRON Technologies. And what is this person's name? That would be Susan. Yeah, wouldn't you know, I'm not finding a Zephron Technologies. So did he just make up a company name? ZEPHRON Technologies. Google it yourself. We don't find any. And even if the company has long since went belly up, you would still find some mention of it. And I'm not doing a deep search here, but geez, I don't think that exists. Great. In the lower level of his house, Dr. Bravo has been at his farmhouse out in Tennessee, but was not allowed to go to this lower level because it's a classified region. But he's actually been visited by these extraterrestrials. So aliens are visiting these people who, when he was on the wrong path of experiment, would actually move instruments or change things to make it correct. Wow, so aliens are trying to help them develop these technologies. Great. Jeffrey Allen Cameron and his wife, Susan Cameron. Oh, okay. So let me Google Susan Cameron in that well, I found a Susan Cameron, but that's a pretty common name. No Susan Cameron related to this company name that he mentions. So did he just make these people up? Because it seems like he made up a whole company that doesn't exist. This is what you get when you start fact checking, right? By the way, Jeffrey Allen Cameron and his wife Susan Cameron live at 303 Poorhouse. Oh, geez. I'm sorry. I don't want to dox people. But 1 second. I'm going to Google that. One second. Let me stop sharing my screen because I don't want to Google some poor people that were involved in a fantasy of Dr. Stephen Greer. But we're going to Google that. He encourages people in this document. 1 second. Taft, Tennessee. That's pretty weird that you would live at Poorhouse Road in Taft, Tennessee. Well, the address exists. It's a vacant lot. Oh, you're kidding me. Hold on. Let me check this address one more time. So we're fact checking Dr. Stephen Greer's Deadman's Trigger, and it appears that the address that he gives, 303 Poorhouse Road, Taft, Tennessee. Yeah, it appears that this is a vacant lot. It's a vacant lot, friends. Here, I'm just going to do this. And since it's just a vacant lot, it's a farm lot. This is great. So he says they live here. This is where these people live. Is this the land of make-believe that we have entered into? Greer says they live here at 303 Poorhouse Road, Taft, Tennessee. For those of you who want to Google this and see where they are, and also to protest what they have done to us, he said repeatedly, Jeff Cameron told us that the intelligence community owns my soul. And he said this very clearly, but that he really wanted to work with us to help humanity and get these technologies out to the world, the energy technologies. So in his own document, Dr. Stephen Greer says, here's where these people live. Google it. That's pretty funny. Oh, maybe I'm looking in the wrong direction. Yeah. 1 second. Yeah, there's a house on the other side of the road. Well, great. We may have docked some poor people. I apologize. Let me do a search here, though, and see if that address comes up as this name that he mentioned. Yeah, because Zillow shows it as a vacant lot. Vacant lot, last sold in 2017. Zillow shows this as a vacant lot. Vacant land located at that address. Well, yeah, so I guess that's a dead end. We'll just go on with our reading of this. But it would be interesting to search that address and find if these people ever lived there. Wait a minute. I've got maybe... maybe I have the information for that address. Oh, yeah, actually, Susan and Jeffrey Cameron are listed as previous owners of that address. Okay, so one thing turns out to be real. But why is he's giving this address out, and then he tells his followers to go protest these people? one second here. Let me get back to our. Okay, so he says, he really wanted to work with us. So after he vanished in 2008, we thought we wouldn't see him again. So this briefing I did for President Obama, he is mentioned and his resume is included in the part that has not up until now been released to the public. In it, we asked for the president to allow him and other people like him to work in a white world energy project. So here, Greer claims that he briefed President Obama. Go to the Obama Presidential Library, ask for any records related to Stephen Greer. Any documents that mention Stephen Greer, you'll find nothing. But don't let things like, facts and reality get in the way. So he asked President Obama to let this person, and remember, this is a person that he claims he gave $250,000 to, but then the guy vanished. So what we've got is he gave $300,000 to one person, and they threatened him and didn't create the free energy device. Then he gives $250,000 to another guy who was supposed to create the free energy device, and he vanished with, I'm assuming, with the money, right? So, all right, and now we'll continue with this. So he briefed President Obama, and again with the free energy talking points. It would eliminate poverty, get us out of the Mideast because of the oil situation, and move on with a transformed civilization. So this was specifically the original briefing for President Obama and other people who were there. So he claims that he briefed President Obama in person here. If he briefed President Obama in person and other people were there or not, there would be some mention of him in the Obama Presidential Library. I checked previously. There's no mention of Dr. Stephen Greer in any of the presidential libraries. For those unaware, every meeting that the president has, every briefing, everything is documented. And the information about everything the president did or was briefed on would be in their presidential library. There's no mention of Dr. Stephen Greer. But here he claims to have briefed Obama and senior Obama administration people at the inauguration in 2009. It concluded also with us being moved into the scam with Pete Sumaruk. So this was all within a year or so. Then he goes on to talk about a Puerto Rican conference. I guess that's a UFO conference in 2009. I released a redacted version of the overview letter of the briefing for President Obama. Why wouldn't he release the whole thing publicly, Mr. Disclosure? But okay. At the time, we did not release the whole briefing that had a lot of classified documents and other information in it. So he claims that his briefing had classified documents in it. Let me ask you a question. Is Dr. Stephen Greer a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee? Is he a member of the United States military? Does he have clearance to be in possession of classified documents? No, he doesn't. And if he were actually in possession of classified documents, he'd be under investigation due to the Espionage Act. It's a felony, and it's punishable by, I think, death to be in possession of classified documents that you don't have access to. But here he is telling another porky, claiming not only that he briefed President Obama and senior President Obama administrative staff, but that there was classified information in that briefing. So he had to redact some of it when he released parts of it, right? No, that's not how any of this works. If he was in possession of classified documents, he would be under federal investigation. UFO people, let me just say this, UFO people like David Wilcock, like this clown, Stephen Greer, they love to pretend that they're in on insider secrets, that they have access to top secret stuff. If any of them did, they'd be under federal investigation. And they never were. To my knowledge, Dr. Stephen Greer has not been investigated for being in possession of classified documents. So basically, we know that he probably wasn't in possession of classified documents, and this is just bullshit for his super stupid followers. Okay, so the document, it had a lot of classified documents and other information, but it was enough that people got an idea of what was in it. Shortly after that, I asked Debbie Foch to see if we could reach out and get a hold of Jeff Cameron again to see if he was available to work for us, even though he was supposed to have been out of the country for 15 months. It turned out that he was in the country and he did want to work with us again. And so in November, when contact was reestablished, we learned he was actually working under contract with a big corporate conglomerate transnational corporation called IT&T, which is part of the Majestic complex of companies. Okay, so he's working for Majestic 12, according to Dr. Greer. He was never out of the U.S. and he had been moved around, sort of just a Manchurian candidate to try and tie us up. Oh, so the United States government moved this person. Oh, one second. Let me fix my camera. I don't know what's going on. Oh, glitching. That's what's going on. I don't know why, but I'm getting a lot of glitchiness from this whole setup all of a sudden. And I'm not quite sure what that's about. I think maybe we need a powered USB hub. That's close enough for right now. All right, let's get back to the document. So essentially, he's claiming that the Majestic 12, the MJ12 group, moved people around to stop him from developing free energy. So Jeff Cameron agreed to come to the meeting, this time with his wife, Susan, in early 2009, and he came here to our home. At the board of directors of Orion Project, Dr. Bravo, myself, Ted Loader, and then we were joined also by Rick Fauch, the senior scientist at the Naval Research Labs, and Debbie Fauch. At the time, we worked through a number of ideas, different kinds of technologies, that with the funds we had available, he could develop an energy system for us, and suggested that we ended up calling it the TEG, the Tesla Earth Energy Generator. It would be like the Earth battery. You can go to orionproject.org and see. This device would generate electricity from a differential between the ground potential and the air potential in the electromagnetic field of the Earth. Earth batteries are actually a real thing, but can you make really, really usable power with them? I've never seen anybody do it. Maybe you power some LEDs or something, but not like a whole house. He felt like this could be done. And we were shooting for was 1 kilowatt or greater proof of principle prototype. They gave us a timeline of delivering this. Actually, the first one in February, sort of a smaller version of it, and the full device at the end of March 2010. So by 2010, he was supposed to deliver the device. We signed a contract with Zephron Technologies that Susan Cameron is the president of and security officer for. And now I got to find these people. What does the live chat think? Should I find Susan and Jeff Cameron and then we'll ask them for an interview about their version of these events? We gave them a grant of that which they asked for, $62,500, to buy the equipment and to take the time to build a prototype for the Orion project. We felt that he certainly had the ability to do this, given his very advanced work in physics and in propulsion and energy for the classified community. He assured us that he had a clear shot at this and that his handlers in the intelligence community had checked us out and checked out what we were doing. And we were good to go. By the way, if the government, this just gets ridiculous. Like, okay, so the government checked out Stephen Greer and told the guy who works on classified projects, okay, you can develop a free energy device. Greer goes on to say, now, one of the last things he told us during the meeting in December 2009 is that he also is working with the intelligence community on evaluating 25,000-year-old technologies that have been found in the Mideast. Oh, this ties into the Baghdad Stargates. By the way, I think it's this Friday night. We're doing a special event on the Baghdad Stargates, right? People say that we invaded Iraq to get Stargates. It wasn't about the oil or So he's tying that in. That was popular when the time that conspiracy theory was very popular at the time that this document was written. So 5,000-year-old technologies have been found in the Mideast in Afghan and Iraq wars, and that actually some of these technologies are apparently, there you have it. Some of these technologies are of extraterrestrial origin and are brought to him to figure out how they work. And that's part of his work with the intelligence community. So he says he provides this kind of support for the military and intelligence communities through his contact with IT&T, who actually pays his paycheck and has his pension. But he also told us that he would be ready to retire from his work in September 2010, and he wanted to be the chief scientist of the Orion Project, or some startup company that we would start as a result of the prototype he would build, and that he'd be willing to move up to Charlottesville, Virginia to work full-time to get these beneficial technologies out to the world. So based on all these agreements, we proceeded. And as it turned out, this whole experience began to fall apart within about 3 weeks. By January 6th or so, 2010, he called to say, well, it's not really going to work to make this Tesla Earth energy generator. And we had a conference call with our board and him and Susan Cameron in early January, and we discussed a number of ideas that would work and that he felt he could complete for us. He said he could make a box that was vacuum sealed. That would have some of his lifter technology in it in combination with the electromagnetic energy of the Earth, and this would be what would be a real dynamo. But it would involve some of the WS, I suppose they mean anti-gravity, as we call it, the weird science that of what he famously calls weird science and frickin' magic. And this is what these technologies are called in the CIA. Yeah, go ask anybody in the CIA if they know what weird science and frickin' magic is, right? So Cameron said this, and that's what he would work on. Within about 3 or 4 days, he contacted Dr. Bravo and said he really couldn't work on this box that would be vacuum sealed and that would have lifter technology because the technology was too sensitive. But he had other ideas of how to make the Earth energy generator work, and that he would be working on. So that's how we continued and proceeded on. Cameron was very committed and was almost in daily contact of every few days in contact with Dr. Bravo until March 15th. And then an interesting thing happened. He went through a sudden change. Apparently, he was taken into a skiff. Skiffs. These guys love to tell stories about skiffs. An electronic eaves-proof place. And he went to a briefing where a lot of oppo research, as they say in the political circles, opposition research, which is basically nasty disinformation, was presented to him about me and about the Orion Project and about CSETI and about the Disclosure Project. He went through a complete Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde change. This coincided with when we were having meetings with a group called JJMB, which is a big group of lobbying and hedge fund and investment people in Washington. They basically claimed to be the rivals of the Carlyle Group. And basically, we were going to move a grant proposal through to form a new company to get funding so that Cameron, being the chief scientist, and a whole group of other scientists we have identified, would work together and would have the ability to really bring out within a year and a half several generations of advanced energy devices. It was when we started meeting with this group, which includes Bart Fisher and Jim and Jack Albertine, who are considered top lobbyists in Washington. For example, is personal friends with Senator Mark Warner of Virginia and a number of other powerful people, that a group of people went to meet with Jeff Cameron. This group included former CIA, he brings in CIA Director James Woolsey. Dr. Stephen Greer loves to lie about James Woolsey. He lied about briefing him, and James Woolsey was so pissed that he issued a statement saying this man never briefed. I sat next to him at a social function. He did not give me a briefing. Now he's claiming James Woolsey is involved. This is because James Woolsey called him a liar, basically. Cameron claims, along with other people presented, a lot of information that was very damaging, and damaging to me personally, and also to our other projects. He began to cite all kinds of bizarre things that were just completely insane. For example, he cited the fact that we used higher states of consciousness in our CE5 work to make contact with extraterrestrials, and that this has been picked up by rogue terrorist cells. We're using this to detonate weapons of mass destruction with their minds. Oh, man. So according to Dr. Stephen Greer, the CIA is aware that Greer is using these CE5 techniques, and somehow terrorist cells got a hold of the CE5 app, and they're using it to detonate bombs, man. They're detonating bombs with mind powers because of Dr. Stephen Greer's CE5 initiative. Boy, sounds juicy, right? Super juicy. Okay. So the terrorists were using this to detonate weapons of mass destruction with their minds. And all this information was tailored to hit all his hot buttons. We have no doubt that they presented to him all kinds of stuff, such as obscene pictures that were presented by Tad Hathaway, the gay grinder pictures of Greer, and others concocted to put out in the summer of '09. He was told that we had not done our due diligence in getting involved with some of the people we had with our funding of people, which of course may be true, except that of course the intelligence community conspired to defraud us and to trick us in these cases. So he's accusing the intelligence community of basically running a disinformation campaign against him with the people that he's trying to develop free energy. Does anybody else thinking that this whole thing is an explanation for what happened, a long-winded explanation for what happened to all the money he collected, right? So far, he's saying he's giving it to these people. Now he's claiming the government's trying to stop the people working with him by perpetrating disinformation campaigns against him. He basically, the document goes on to say, he basically went from within a week or two from being fully on board with us, being our chief scientist, to not being able to work with us at all. So what happens to the money? He gave the guy $62,000 apparently. Greer goes on to say, becoming very, boy, what's that word? That's the big word of the day. Obstreperous and uncooperative. That's not how you say it. Obstreperous and uncooperative, to the point that he claimed he was being deployed overseas to another operation, just like he had in '08 when he said he had to go overseas and couldn't work with us. Except this time, so here's the explanation for what happened to all the money. He'd taken $62,500 from the Orion Project's money, had blown through every deadline of delivering the technology to us, and now had no intention, obviously, of delivering either the technology or the returning funds. So here's a man who is on the payroll of IT&T, which is being funded through the U.S. taxpayers through the black budget of the United States, as part of a conspiracy to defraud the Orion Project. So basically, Greer's explanation for what happened to all the money is that he gave it to people, and then the United States government somehow defrauded his organization out of money. Those are big allegations to be making, right? Awfully big allegations to be. Is there any proof of these allegations? Well, he may have started out sincerely. He succumbed to this disinformation presented by who he claims was R. James Woolsey and others, including people at the Office of Continental United States Security, who said, he said had tape recordings of our conference calls with him. And those conference calls have been recorded by foreign nationals. Yeah, so Greer claims that he's so important that the government is recording all of his calls, not just the United States government, but foreign adversarial governments are recording his calls. It's getting thick in here. It's getting really thick in here. All right. Recorded by foreign nationals. He emphasized that the foreign nationals were spying on what we were doing. Yeah, like Greer's so important that foreign governments are spying on Dr. Stephen Greer. That is a ridiculous statement, childish, nonsensical, narcissistic, and illogical. But okay, it was actually the intelligence officers within the United States were also convinced that this RF chip in his leg is from the intelligence community, because many times on our calls, we would hear interference and hear bleed through of other conversations and electromagnetic interference that was very, very suspicious. From this point onward, he became more and more irrational and went from one day being willing to write a letter saying he'd be our chief scientist to not be able to do so, to then not being willing to work with us at all. This all happened within a 2-week period. The disinformation that he was provided was so absurd as to be laughable, but he was vulnerable to it. He completely bought it. And I think that started out really wanting to work with us sincerely, but ended up succumbing to the machinations of the intelligence community, which knew he was working with us. So apparently Greer's explanation for why this is great. Greer's explanation for why he collected, I think it was over $500,000 from the UFO community and never produced anything, is that the government got involved and screwed up his efforts to create this free energy device. Sure. Or something else happened to that $500,000, right? And at what point does it become criminal that he's accusing government officials of defrauding him and his organization out of money? If those claims are not true, that's very problematic, I would think. So on the 19th of April, I got a call from Rick Foch, who was at the Naval Research Lab when this happened. Letter had been sent from Dr. Ted Loder on behalf of the Orion Project, asking Jeff and Susan Cameron to proceed with the work and saying that they develop a prototype, which we now know he is capable of doing because other work he's done has been confirmed to us. Great. Look, we did not pay for a feasibility study. We paid to have a technology developed, and we still expect this to be developed. And these documents are in PDF file, which is attached to this recording. Jeff Cameron became unglued by this letter, and he called Rick Foch at the Naval Research Labs around midday and was on a rant, and he threatened to get the Criminal Investigation Division of the Army to turn on us and to attack us. Basically, he made these statements to Rick Foch, who under oath would have to testify this was the case. Where under oath? Rick Foch immediately called me and said Jeff was very upset and that he wanted him to proceed. Obviously, he had been ordered by someone not to proceed and claimed it was people like R. James Woolsey, the CIA director, who I will get to in a moment. But Rick Foch, said that something wasn't right and that Rick said that Jeff didn't know it, but the Naval Research Labs, he had the ability to see exactly where Jeff Cameron was calling from. Now, Jeff Cameron called and claimed he was calling from Saudi Arabia, and that was early morning there, when in reality, it would have been about 8:30 at night. Immediately, Rick Foch thought this was very odd. So this thing is a rambling mess to explain what happened to all the money he collected. Greer goes on to say, we have suspected that since at least January, he was confabulated much of what he's been doing and lying, and that he became embedded in this as a scheme to defraud us as a trap set by the intelligence community. And what I call majestic, magi or cosmic clearance level people who are trying to keep all these energy technologies secret. So that's why Dr. Stephen Greer collected $500,000 and never produced anything. Because the members of MJ-12 defrauded his organization out of all the money. Yeah, MJ-12. Yeah. They let him move in late last year as a takedown of the Orion Project, as a sequela to our having been taken down by Todd Hathaway and Pete Sumaruk in late 2008 and 2009. This is a repeat of that in 2009 and 2010. With this have come a number of threats of imprisonment, threats of death, stalking, all kinds of bizarre sexual innuendos and attempts to blackmail. What Cameron ended up doing is basically pulling us into another nightmare. So Greer is claiming that both people he gave money to from the Orion Project to create these devices defrauded him with the help of MJ-12, the alien, secret keepers of the deep state. Sure, pulling us into a nightmare. I think he did it initially in good faith, and then once the trap was sprung, they got to him and caused him to betray us because he was too weak to withstand them. He claims he answers to General Petraeus, and he answers to McChrystal and a lot of other senior people, and that basically he has no choice. Rick Folk admitted to me in conversations a few weeks ago in early April at my condo in Washington, D.C., that Jeff Cameron has the markings of a number of people he's worked with who have been in the vault. These are the people he's worked with that have been in the vault. These top secret operations, that is, many of them have a background of either drug abuse or having been sexually abused. We suspect many of them are MK Ultra babies. We know that Fred Bell, for example, was an MK Ultra baby, the descendant of Alexander Graham Bell. Oh, come on, that's just ridiculous. He's actually one of the Disclosure Project witnesses. And that these people are who are very early ages are given over to the scientific, to the intelligence community for the development of certain scientific abilities and are completely brainwashed. And I understand in the process are physically abused, mentally abused, emotionally abused, and sexually abused. At the heart of this majestic group is a satanic cult. So you hear it here first. Not only is MJ12 trying to stop him from using that $500,000 he collected from the intelligence, or excuse me, from the UFO community to create free energy, but MJ12 is trying to stop him, and they're a satanic cult. People like Colonel John Alexander and his ilk are actually people who love death and love torture, as does Dick Cheney and people like him. Cameron is the right age between 1940s and 50s, and Cameron would have been born in the 50s. People who are connected to these projects, like his father, Dr. Cameron of the top secret Montauk Project. Oh, we got to bring in Montauk. Did a lot of electronic weirdness and carried on where the Philadelphia experiment left off. Would have their children raised by these horrific secret entities. This is what happened to Fred Bell, who was completely brainwashed. He used to talk about all the weapon systems he had built, and he would place in space. And by 1965, had built what would target extraterrestrial vehicles and kill them. Bell would be out at the special installation and see that they would hit an ET craft and it would blow up or crash. They would all be jumping up and down with joy that they had killed the dirty damn aliens. Yeah, kill those aliens. So Fred Bell and people like him were completely brainwashed into this cult. We found through working with Jeffrey Allen Cameron that he was the same type of personality, enormously unstable. His wife is much older and serves as a mother figure in some sort of strange relationship. He holds security clearances and has a security clearance for this area of their house, although technically she's just his wife, which is not the case at all. I believe Jeff Cameron is a very dependent, emotionally unstable person who needed an enormous amount of hand-holding and support from Dr. Bravo, to the point that it was just insane. So he became rather concerned about his mental status. Of course, through these observations, it's been further confirmed that Rick Folk, that many of these people who are physicists and geniuses who work in the intelligence and scientific community have this sort of strange background in their childhood, and they seem to behave in ways that are inexplicable. We're quite sure there's a lot of electronic mind control going on with Jeff Cameron, and I think that he is a tragic figure. He's a perpetrator as well as a victim. He's been moved into place, I believe, intentionally to tie up in this and to create legal problems, and also to create financial meltdown and other problems for us. He doesn't have much awareness of what he's doing because he's often not cognizant, and that he lives in a very colorful fantasy world where he just makes up things. That is why, having confirmed by someone who had the technology at the Naval Research Lab that he was lying about his whereabouts. Great. There are a whole series of lies and deceptions. Both Susan Cameron, who knows he's sitting right there at the house with her, as well as Jeffrey Cameron, have engaged in, and that they have been moved into place to do what is basically to take us down. So and we're up to page 18. We made it more than halfway through. It gets better or it gets worse, depending on your point of view. But I have tired of reading this. So the gist of this so-called Deadman switch, it's really just an explanation of what happened to all the money that he collected for his Orion Project charity. Apparently, he was defrauded by people with the help of the MJ12 Satanic cult, who were mind-controlling people as children and torturing people, mental and physical abuse. This is a cobbled together piece of garbage from various different conspiracy land stories, including the Montauk jerk-off story and other, the Philadelphia experiment, brought that in. Is this just an explanation for what happened to over $500,000 that he collected? Now, remember, after all of this is ancient history to Greer. Recently, he collected another $500,000 to create a film about free energy. I'm just going to Google Stephen Greer free energy and see if we can't show the latest effort to make money off of free energy. Dr. Stephen Greer has collected, to the best of my knowledge, over $1 million about free energy. So $1 million has been created. 0 point. That's the no, that's not it. Let me find the latest film. So the latest was he collected $500,000. Oh, they're not available on Amazon because of 1091 films. Damn it. But I did find an article, so we can just reference the article. I think it was medium.com, where I found an article about his latest film. But what you need to know about his latest film is that he collected $500,000. Unacknowledged, a fascinating new documentary that details available evidence. Oh no, that's a different one. In that one, he did talk about free energy as well, though. But in the latest, he collected $500,000 to create a free energy device. And according to this document, the MJ-12 Satanic cult got involved, and they ruined free energy for all of us. Man, I could be running 10 more computers in here and not worry about my power bill. Dude, crypto mining or something with all that computer, it's absolutely ridiculous. So according to Dr. Stephen Greer, he was defrauded out of $362,000 of the $500,000 or more that he raised. And by the way, I'm going to be sending Dr. Stephen Greer an email, and we're going to want to see some spreadsheets. He's accounted for $362,000 of the first $500,000 of free energy money he collected. If we believe him that these people, along with the MJ-12 Satanic cult, defrauded him of the money, if we believe him, there's still $140,000 that he hasn't explained. Maybe it's in the rest of the document. And let me know in the live chat, would you like to see me read the rest of this? If you're gonna, I'll do it. If you guys want to see it. Not tonight, however. My throat is getting dry from reading so much. But isn't it interesting? This is supposed to be a Deadman switch. This is supposed to be all this damaging information against the deep state, against Majestic 12, against the Men in Black, against the dark cabal that's stopping alien disclosure and free energy from being released to the world so none of us have to work anymore. It's a great story, but there's no evidence to support any of this. And this reads like a bad spy novel written by somebody that's never written a spy novel before. Yikes there, Simon Fly. So, we're going to take a short break, and then I'm going to take comments and questions from the live chat for a bit. I still have some time to share with you. But it's nice that it's a good time, I should say, for me to remind you that we're a viewer-supported show. And unlike Dr. Stephen Greer, who collected $1 million and gives everybody nothing, we try to give people good value for their couple of bucks. For those unaware, we're a viewer-supported show. What does that mean? That means we exist from the kindness, generosity, and support of viewers like you. And if you want to see real coverage of these strange and esoteric subjects, not the Griff Squad version, but, peeling back the layers of deception, I would appreciate your support. You could join our Patreon. You could throw a couple bucks in our hat with a super chat, a PayPal donation, PayPal pledge. And if you do send something by PayPal, please add your chat room user ID and any message that you want for us to read out. I also always have to do this to remind people that the show is not over. Sometimes we play these bumpers and everybody leaves. I'm going to be taking comments and questions from the live chat. I'm interested in what the audience seems to believe about this. Is this a real dead man's trigger? Or is this a ridiculous attempt for Dr. Stephen Greer to explain away $500,000 and just keep the money? I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me know in the live chat or in the comments below. So we're going to take a quick break from the man with the golden voice, Mr. Ian, but the show is not over. We'll be right back after this short message about how you too can support the show. I'll be right back to take your comments, questions. Please put your comments and questions in all capital letters. It really does help. We'll also be reading any super chats we get. We read every single one. So get those super chats in, and we'll be taking comments and questions and reading the super chats next. We'll be right back, friends.
Truthseekers is a viewer-supported show. Wonderful people like you who enjoy this show send pledges in the form of super chats, super stickers, super thanks, PayPal, or Cash App. Instructions for how to help are in the description. You can also join our Patreon, and for as little as $1 a month you can get extra content. Patreon supporters get a backstage pass, early access to all our production videos before they are distributed publicly, Stephen Campion's music, private writings, a monthly show journal, and more. You can also become a YouTube channel member for $5 a month. A YouTube membership includes all of the Patreon benefits, plus a special members badge, priority reply to video comments, and the live chat, plus a monthly members-only video. We thank you all, kind and generous benefactors, for supporting Truth Seekers. Thank you for your generosity and support. Truthseekers is a viewer-supported show. Now there's a great way to support these broadcasts and show your support. Please be sure and check out our merchandise store. Links to our 2 merchandise online stores are in the links to this video or podcast. The Amazon storefront ships super quickly in the United States, Great Britain, and in many more places. Amazon may not ship to your country or location. If that's the case, hit our second merchandise link in the description and visit our Redbubble storefront. Merchandise from our Redbubble storefront ships worldwide, but may take longer than Amazon. We've got a great deal of super high quality merchandise for you to choose from, including t-shirts, phone cases, sweatshirts, and even pillows. The feedback from our products have been overwhelmingly great. Quality products and fast shipping. People all over the world are buying some merchandise and showing their support of the show. Praise the cash! Praise the cash! Praise the cash! We thank you all, kind and generous benefactors who are buying some merchandise and helping us to continue this journey. Thanks for being here. This is Truth Seekers with your host, Stephen Campion. please rate, like and comment on our videos or podcasts. If you are listening to an audio podcast, please rate us 5 stars to help us rise in the search rankings. If you are watching on YouTube, please like, comment and subscribe to our channel. If you're listening to an audio podcast, we love and appreciate you listeners, but you are missing the live tapings. All our shows are recorded live with video feed. We'd love you to come be a part of our live broadcasts and tapings for the podcast. Head on over to YouTube, click the search tool, the little magnifying glass, put Truthseekers, one word in the search bar, and hit enter. You'll see a strange and mysterious guy with sunglasses. That means you found the channel. Go there, smash the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell to receive up-to-date info on our YouTube channel. We welcome you to be a part of our live taping and our chat group during the live broadcasts. Seek the truth. Speak the truth. This is Truthseekers. Truthseekers.
Greetings and salutations. So we're back. I'll be taking comments and questions from the live chat, starting with the super chats. We've got one from Spooky for £2. DC Muscle Wolf should have hired a ghostwriter. I forgot a large portion of the contents of this. It's been years since I've looked at this. Spooky sent it to me and said, you should cover this. And I'm like, cover this? And by the way, let me know in live chat, should we do the other half tomorrow or another day here? But I'll have to do something, make some other videos to cut up. It's too dry to just sit here reading this thing for 2 hours, right? Pretty interesting. Robert Vargas is here and asks, how are you? I'm kind of blown away that Greer would put this out in public and tell people this is the explanation for what happened to all that money, I guess. If Greer has fully made the slide into a delusional state, he might believe this is a dead man's trigger, but I lean more towards this is a see a fraudster move. Yeah, I know. I remember when he collected all that money, everybody was like, where's the device, man? Where is the device that you promised everybody? And I guess this is his long-winded 33-page explanation for what happened to all that money. Yes, Art and Paranormal is here and says he's baffling everyone with bullshit. Yeah, apparently that's the name of the game here. But it would be interesting to contact some of the people that he makes a series of very serious accusations against here and see what they think. And I like how he took a shot at James Woolsey. This is after James Woolsey came out and called him a liar, basically. Now James Woolsey is in on a conspiracy to stop his free energy device that he collected $500,000 to deliver to the public, right? Yes. Georgie Goraji says, I can read it thoroughly before then. I really need the laugh out louds. Yeah, the lulls. Yeah. Garaji wants us to do it tomorrow or another day. Well, maybe we'll do that. I had another show planned yesterday, but I like to complete a thought. And if you notice, I made a point that we went more than halfway through. So we are more than halfway through. Yeah, we made it to page 15, or excuse me, 17. So we have less than half of it we've digested here. This is a 33-page rambling, nonsensical, conspiracy land, garbage-filled infestation and a look into the mind of this madman. He thinks, let's just review. He thinks he's so important that foreign governments are surveilling him and recording all his calls. He thinks he's so important that there's multiple government agencies involved in trying to stop him from creating free energy. Or could it be that free energy is impossible and he needed to come up with some explanation to tell his stupid followers about what happened to that $500,000 that he collected? And wouldn't you know, right after that, he goes on to just start more fundraisers and collect more money and more money and more money for other stuff. It's pretty amazing to me. Troll is here. Thanks for being a member. Says, if you send Greer enough money, you will receive a leg lamp like the one from the movie Christmas Story. Yeah. Paul Shields, are you willing to pay the cost of free energy? Yeah, exactly. It's great. And Dr. T says, it's sad and amusing reading through the comments on Greer's videos. Yeah, there's some, no matter how stupid you think a lot of the people in the world are, read comments to Dr. Stephen Greer's videos. And then you realize they're even stupider than you thought they were, right? Jewel Chicky Arlene is here. Good to see you here, Jewel Chicky Arlene, and welcome. I swear Greer looks like a reptilian, but I bet he was there to deflect attention away from them. Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, somebody asked about this wrap thing around my desk. First of all, there's a big mess under my desk. There always is. There's I got right now. There's a drum machine, a distortion pedal, and two real big workstation class computers. One, my ZPC is my main PC here, and yeah. By the way, loving having a decent workstation with a decent video card. Thanks to all of you, all the kindness, generosity, and support of all you kind and generous benefactors. But there's a huge mess under my desk. There always is. And with these wide shots, it always looked way messy. I still have to clean some of the mess over here. And by the way, somebody left a nasty message, which I deleted because, you know, if you're gonna slag me, come up with something better than that. They were like, oh, big budget studio, he's got a folding table. Yeah, ask any computer guy what we like. We like big folding tables. You know why? Because you could put like 4 computers on that bitch. Well, you normally could. There's some 50-inch screens, though, taking up a lot of space in this one, so you can only get 2 or 3. But anyway, and people have also asked about these little laptops. One runs a satellite tracking program, and another one runs Stellarium, so that I can track the movement of the stars and the planets. Because occasionally people see, believe it or not, Warminster, Pennsylvania, where I live, is a hot spot. People see UFOs in this town, and there's been 3 or 4 times already where I've been able to use those laptops, both with satellite tracking and another one that tracks the stars and the planets and planetary spheres, moons, whatever, to debunk things that people were seeing. In one case, it was Saturn. In another case, it was a satellite. And that's more or less been confirmed by some of the gear that I have here. Oh, but back to so I have a folding table. I don't care. I like folding tables. You can fit a lot of shit on them. So, but back to the desk, I put this thing around to hide all the wires and cables and boxes and blips and whatever junk is under the desk. And believe it or not, that wrap is the very first Truthseekers backdrop, right? And it's all beat up and battle scarred, but I decided to keep it and do this with it, and then you get the cool projected effect. I think it's interesting. William Runner is here, and I think talking about Greer fans says totally brainwashed morons. Yeah, and Algaray wants to know, wait, is the David Wilcox box of dildos buried under the desk? Definitely not under the desk. Yes, and Randy says, under the desk is where all the towers and wires and other goblins live. Yeah. Garaji says, Woolsey called Greer a liar because he was busy swindling Greer out of all that free energy money. Yeah. And Chick Arlene, I swear Greer looks like a reptilian. Bet he was sent here to deflect attention away from them. Yeah, I think that you're probably right. Troll. If you send Greer enough money, you will receive a... Okay, we got that one already. Sorry. Art and Paranormal reminding people you could join our Discord and chat with like-minded weirdos like you're doing right now, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We got all different categories and sections. No matter what strange stuff you're into, there's a section there. And Operation Shutdown, who I believe is also in Pennsylvania, says Pennsylvania has been a hotspot of UFOs lately. Not just lately. It's been quite a while. I must be tired. Yeah, I'm sorry if I am. I've actually been getting up earlier, which is new to me. But I've been getting up a little earlier, and yeah, some days I just don't have the energy. I could get through the rest of this in 2 more hours, but those 4-hour streams are really difficult. Greer is an uncle of the Cousins brothers. Yes, that's how you know. Listen, if this guy was on the level and the legitimate, would he be working with the biggest hoaxers in UFO land to make stuff? Third Phase of Moon has been caught with how many hoaxed fake UFO videos? They did it for years and years and years and years and years. So nothing screams credibility like hitching your wagon to the biggest hoaxers in the UFO business. And, you know, I know they changed tactics. They don't create fake videos anymore, but they still do stupid shit. And those guys are about as credible as crack. I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. Third Phase of Moon and everybody that works for or with Third Phase of Moon are all about as credible as a crackhead with a gas can asking you to help him out with gas money. Not to be trusted, right? Crackhead with a gas can. Jewel Chick Arlene says, one of the times I listened to Cheryl Costa, there was lots of data for PA sightings. Yeah, I have to check in with Cheryl. There's supposed to be a book with all the Pennsylvania UFO sightings. Cheryl did a book for each state, I believe, which is interesting. Greer is on Vlad TV the second time. Now, I wasn't aware of that. Choli Chol Chol says, I like fold-up tables that have lots of holiday food on them. Yeah, that's another thing. You know, you got an extra folding table around. We're going to have a Christmas party here, I think, this year. I think every year I thought we should have a Christmas party because we got a nice fireplace and a huge basement, and the fireplace is in the huge basement, and real nice and cozy, and it just seems like Christmas in there when that fire is going. Haven't had a fire here at the house yet. Had plenty of fires at the cabin. I got plenty of firewood for here. I just haven't gotten around to it. But we're going to have a Christmas party here, and I've got extra folding tables in my garage for Christmas parties, right? Yes, Dr. T says, keep in mind that meteorites can be mistaken as UFOs too. Yeah, I definitely believe that. Jason Parker says, third phase of moon. Yeah, those guys are ridiculous. And I love that, you know, there were people who worked for them that I just not even going to name, but that claimed they never hoaxed anything. Then it was they never hoaxed anything in 5 years, then 3 years, then 2 years, then 1 year. We just kept catching them, you know. Operation Shutdown says, if you have a Christmas party, don't invite Greer. He's the Grinch that stole the disclosure. Yeah. Oh, besides this whole situation of Greer claiming that he briefed presidents, we also get the claim. He claimed that he once claimed that, geez, I totally lost my train of thought. He claimed, besides briefing the presidents, he also claimed that he knew the location of the giant spaceship, and he did that before Ross Coulthard. So Stephen Greer knows the location of a giant spaceship, a spaceship so big that they had to just put a building over it because they couldn't move it. So the guy who's running the disclosure project won't name where the spaceship is. So he is the literal gatekeeper of disclosure. Totally ridiculous. Yeah, third phase hasn't faked anything for like 2 weeks now, says Al Garay. Yeah, what about James Gillian? Think he's a fraud? Yeah, we covered him in the past. I don't think he's a credible source of information. He's about as credible as a crackhead with a gas can too. And anybody that would knowingly, willingly, and deliberately work with somebody like Corey Good is not somebody that I think I want to listen to about anything. And by the way, I just want to take a moment to recognize something. Never missing an opportunity to take a shot at somebody who I truly believe has taken a shot at me through his ragtag group of doxing attack dog losers. That would be Mr. Lou Elizondo. And what I'm about to say is my personal belief. For those unaware, I once hosted a filmmaker here, and that filmmaker made a not at all flattering film about Lou Elizondo. What you need to know is that all the information in that film was entirely accurate. I think there was one thing that was wrong, and he did a retraction. But the rest of the information in the film was entirely accurate. So for the sin of hosting a filmmaker and talking about that film, I was attacked by the Zondo Goon Squad. That's what I call them. You know, the Fister jerk-off and Rob Heatherly, who likes to watch videos of little girls on YouTube, right? Yeah, little young girls. He had a playlist, Rob Heatherly. That was one of the Zondo Goon Squad attack dogs. So they said they didn't dox me, but they put out my legal name and the street that I live on. And if you Google those two things, you find my home address. And I just want to take a moment to remind people that anybody coming here intending to do myself, or especially my family, harm would be a really stupid idea, considering my stance on self-defense and you know, having the tools available. I'm just going to leave it at that. But that's not what the Zondo Goon Squad do. They just harass people on the internet because they're pussies. And so that's what they did to me, including threatening my children, threatening my wife, coming into the live chat and threatening my family, of course, on sock accounts. And this was all in response to me telling the truth about Zondo, Lou Elizondo, lying. One second. Let me get what is going on with these cameras today? It's counterintelligence. Counterintelligence people are getting they must have hacked me. No. So the Goon Squad comes after me and does all these things, threatens me. I got all these threatening emails and all this nonsense. And again, my sin was that I hosted a filmmaker. So these people said they were doing it to get those people who were, quote, going after Lou. I wasn't going after anybody. I was talking about a film that was made, a film which, by the way, was mostly or largely or almost entirely factually correct in the points that it put forth about Mr. Lou Elizondo. So there's long been all these rumors and everything that Lou Elizondo, oh, come on, I'm going to give up on that camera. Let's see if we can't get this to work. There we go. I'm just going to keep it at this one. So there's long been these rumors that he was directing these people. And I don't know if that's the case, but he has not condemned people doing things like doxing people, harassing people, threatening people, intimidating people, threatening people's families, threatening people's children. And by the way, this happened to me. And I have firsthand knowledge of these Goon Squad idiots doing that. And by the way, you know, that sort of abuse and threatening nature of what some people are calling the UFO hate group continues to this day. And one of the principal harassers that will go after you if you say anything that he doesn't like about, his dear leader, the hero of disclosure, Lou Elizondo, is King Milkfart. And Lou Elizondo followed King Milkfart. And I have heard various times that people went to him and told him everything that Milkfart was up to. And again, I get this is secondhand information, but and told him you shouldn't follow him because he's harassing everybody and doing X, Y, and Z, who, by the way, Milkfart, last I heard, was under criminal arrest for domestic violence. He claimed he flipped a table over or something. I don't know what happened with that, but he's a dangerous psychopath, in my opinion. And he's running around harassing anybody who says anything about Lou Elizondo that he doesn't like. And he says he's doing it in Lou's name, just like the other Zondo goon squad with this idiot Thomas Fessler and this idiot Rob Heatherly. They went around harassing anybody that would host that filmmaker or talk about that film, right? And by the way, you idiots, everything in the film was right. And the more time goes on, the more we know that, Lou Elizondo is not who he claimed to be. He lied to the New York Times. He never ran a Pentagon program, UFO program. He's a liar. Somebody had to lie to the New York Times. He was the principal source of that story. So who lied to them about running a $22 million funded Pentagon UFO secret program? Wasn't secret, wasn't funded, and it wasn't a real program. Lou Elizondo is a liar, and he is a sad, sad, bitter little man. And despite all the controversy of him following, in the case of the people who harassed me, he rewarded them. I tweeted at him what these people were doing in his name to me and to my family. No reply. And then he went on their show, I believe, as a thank you for harassing me, for threatening me, for intimidating me, for trying to stomp all over my free speech. Hey, Lou Elizondo, welcome to America, bitch. I'm allowed to say whatever I want about you lying to the New York Times. I'm allowed to host a filmmaker here and talk about a film that tells the truth instead of the lies you told to the New York Times. I'm allowed. We have free speech, right? But yet the goon squad in your name is trying to stomp all over free speech. And one of the people that is continues to this day to do all kinds of nasty things to people is this King Milkfart. So Lou Elizondo followed his account. Then his account got deleted or, banned from Twitter. He started a new account, which, by the way, is against Twitter's terms of service. If your account gets banned, you can't just start a new one, to the best of my knowledge. So SIRIUS UAP, Jerry McGowan, posted this. For anyone who doesn't believe that Lou Elizondo supports the doxing and harassment of people here in UFO Twitter, after King Milkfart's other main account was suspended for violations of Twitter policies, harassment, it didn't take long for Lou to follow the new account KMF created to bypass the suspension against Twitter's policies. Not only has Lou not condemned the behavior of people such as King Milkfart, he actively supports them. So, I'm going to put this in a form of a question. Lou Elizondo, you didn't do anything when your goon squad losers, and that's what they are. They're losers because the truth wins in the end, you losers, supporting a liar. You didn't do anything. Oh, you did do something. You went on their show again to thank them. In my opinion, he went on their show again to thank them for going after everybody that was telling the truth about him. You sad, sad, bitter little man. Now he's following King Milkfart's account again. And what does King Milkfart do? He harasses people. He threatens people, intimidates people, doxes people, threatens people's children, makes up vicious lies about people being the P word, even when they're not, about people being criminals, even when they're not. And Lou Elizondo is following that guy a second time. Once may be a mistake, twice is a pattern. Lou Elizondo, you are a sad, sad, bitter little liar of a man. And the truth always comes out in the end. You didn't run a Pentagon UFO program. You're full of shit. You never ran a Pentagon UFO program. You're full of shit. And you are lying in the text body designed to sell your book. So that could be a real problem for you, making claims that aren't factually correct in order to sell something. But what do I know, right? I'm just a guy with a show searching for the truth. So we'll take a few more comments and questions from the live chat. Then I got to get to fixing whatever the glitches are going on here. We've got some gremlins. Red Eye is here. New York Times should have checked Lou's background better. Yeah, well, it was a UFO wackadoo in the form of Leslie Keene that did that article. She wanted to push aliens. She didn't care if his background was fake. And now that loser is running around. He created a false reality where he ran a Pentagon UFO program that, and by the way, that program didn't exist as he described it. It wasn't funded, wasn't secret, wasn't an official program. So now he's living a lie. The guy's literally living a lie. And you can send, Lou Elizondo, as many of your loser goon squad against me. I'm still going to say that you lied to the New York Times and that you never ran a Pentagon UFO program and that you, sir, are a liar. You know, do what you're going to do. What are you going to do? Send milk for it against me? That guy failed miserably. He can't, and that's the funny part. The goon squad is so terrible at this. All they do is create more backlash because people see what Lou is not condemning, at least, and people are doing this shit in their name, in his name. If people were running around harassing people in my name, I would immediately issue a public statement and condemn those actions. By the way, I do encourage people to aggressively ask questions, but I would never encourage anybody, regardless of what anybody does to me. I would never encourage somebody to threaten, intimidate, bully, harass, step all over the free speech of, attempt to intimidate, threaten people's children, threaten people's family. I would never condone that. I condemn those kind of things strongly, having been the victim of that myself. It's not fun. And by the way, I was in no danger because those keyboard warrior loser goon squad of his, you know, they're keyboard warriors, real tough, hiding behind a computer and a fake account. But who did they learn being tough, hiding behind a fake account from? Oh, Lou Elizondo, loser Zondo. Yeah. Exterior knowledge is here. Man, he says, what I find the problem with Stephen Greer is he does lie a lot about things he mentions. Because of Truthseekers, I understand him, that he never briefed anyone or anything. But I think the most. Yeah, it's interesting. And exterior knowledge also goes on to say, at the same time, I believe what's more important is the contact itself, because I learned this through self and never through Stephen Greer. But I believe anything is possible. Yeah, the man selling an app where he claims you can talk to aliens for $10. That is what kind of person we're dealing with. So it is what it is. Art and Paranormal says Musk pretty much lets anything go on X. Yeah. Yeah. G7 says real little. Yeah, Elizondo is a sad little man who's living a lie and a fantasy, right? Oh, and he's got superpowers too. He's got superpowers besides running a fake Pentagon UFO program. He also has superpowers. Randy says, does Greer write his own grift or does he got a guy to do it for him? Oof, yeah. I really don't know. He should get a better writer, though. If he did pay a writer for this, it's garbage. So what can I say, friends? We've done our due diligence. We may do this as a part 2 tomorrow, or I may do the other show that I have planned, but we'll be back tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So we've got another show for you at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And also, We have 3 best of episodes this week. Friday, Saturday. Saturday is really going to be good, and it includes a whole explanation of Dr. Stephen Greer's Orion project. So we're going to get our fill of Dr. Stephen Greer this week here, right? So next show is 11/16/2023 at 9 p.m. Eastern. That'll be tomorrow night. I'll be here, and I hope you'll be here in the live chat as well. We have done our due diligence for today. By the way, speaking of doing due diligence, I did some checking on the account that was, I love it when people with sock accounts little bitches come here, put a mask on to take a shot at me. Be a man, take off the mask, you little bitch, and say it with your name, like a man. Right? Well, I mean, I don't know. I grew up on the mean streets of Philadelphia, and if you got a problem with a man, you go to him like a man, and you figure it out. You don't wear a mask and throw rocks at his house in the middle of the night like a scared crybaby little bitch. But it is what it is. I'm amused by some of these people. You don't bother me. You make me laugh at you for being such a coward that you need to use a sock account. Use a real account, be a man about it. All right. So we've done our due diligence for today. I'll be back tomorrow night, 11/16/2023 at 9 p.m. Eastern. Please join us in the live chat. Hope to see you at our next show. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share these videos. It really, really does help. And we want to thank each and every one of you for joining us. We want to thank our kind and generous benefactors. We want to thank you, Patreon supporters, YouTube channel members, Twitch subscribers, and all you people listening on the audio podcast. The audio podcast has really picked up lately, so thanks to all you audio listeners as well. We want to thank you, YouTube channel members, PayPal pledgers, Gold Pill people on pill.net. They're throwing money at me over there. Praise the cash, bitches. We want to thank all of you kind and generous benefactors. We want to thank you, all of you in the live audiences, whether you were monitoring the live broadcast on Rumble, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, or pill.net. We thank all of you for being here. So that's all I got for you. I think we're going to do the other half. Don't you want to see what happens? And let me know in the comments and in the live chat. Is this just an excuse for where $500,000 disappeared to? And if it is, what a ridiculous excuse. The Men in Black, the Satanic Majestic 12, they stopped me from creating free energy with the $500,000 that all you stupid UFO clowns donated, right? Great. Well, friends, I'm going to bounce on out of here. We'll be back tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Eastern time. Hope you'll be here with us. Until next time, friends, my name is Stephen Cambion. Good night, and God bless all of you.